Hello and welcome to the King Pie podcast. So the WPL starts tomorrow, and the first game itself, Judge Giants versus Mumbai Indians, is supposed to take off the league from the ground, and the league would obviously be taking place in Mumbai in the T5 Patil Stadium and the Bravon Stadium. Now, there's a lot to be excited about, obviously, with the WBBL and the 100 already in existence, and now there's WPL to be excited about as well. But here's something that makes me kind of curious, especially given that we have seen the pitch that would be in use here, the mostly the Devi Patil Stadium pitch and the Bravon Stadium pitch later on. And we have seen the India versus Australia series that took place there in December last year, and we saw some high scoring games there. And even though India did really well, despite also losing 4-1, you could see the batters had a lot of chance to score freely, and as Australia showed, those pitches were really good to bat, and that is something which I'm looking forward to in WPL as well. Especially given that now the batters from lesser known teams, even the teams that usually don't score big in the internationals, West Indies, even India sometimes, who relatively conservative cricket due to, let's say, their batting strength, can actually play more freely because they've got some backup. Even if they do not do well, they have someone to count on. So feel like there's a lot of chances for people who usually do not play that aggressively to play aggressively. As the Gujarat Giants, they have their Indian batting order in Meghna, Hemlata, Halin Deol. There's also Shushma Verma, who is the wicketkeeper batter. There's all-rounders in Sneh Rana and some others. Obviously, there's also their foreign quartet with the captain Beth Mooney. There's the all-rounders in Sophia Dunkley, Dandre Doughton. There's Annabelle Sutherland. Obviously, there would be someone who would have to set out. There's also Georgia Wareham, who's the leg spinner. But the point still is that with there being a lot of freedom about playing playing on obviously a pitch that is really good for scoring, and also the fact that you are not probably under as much as pressure as you are while playing for your national team. I am expecting someone like Harleen Deol or maybe even Yastika Bhatia to come good in the tournament, especially given that they have done really well in the domestic setup. They both were one of the best batters in the recently finished Senior Women's T20 Cup as well for India D, if I remember correctly. Obviously, Yastika Bhatia played for India D, who won the tournament as well. On the other hand, there's also players that would probably be playing in a little different condition. Someone like Ashley Gardner, who usually plays, for Australia or Sydney Sixers, where she has a lot of backup behind her in both bowling and batting. But here she'd be basically being the leader of the attack in, of sorts, with obviously her being the more experienced one. The only more experienced ones would be Beth Mooney and Ray Doughton to some extent, or even maybe almost the same, because Ashley Gardner and Beth Mooney actually debuted pretty close. So it would be interesting to see how these faces do for Gujarat Giants, who are actually kind of a weird team because they have got this line of all rounders, but there's also kind of seemingly a lack of experience with not really a lot of long term experienced players. Obviously, Beth Mooney and Deandre Doughton are their most experienced players, and then there's a lot of players, young ones, who might not be as experienced with the T20s as other teams have. And talking of the other teams, their opponent tomorrow would be Mumbai Indians, who, on the other hand, boast of a lot of experience. The captain, obviously, Manpreet Kaur, Indian veteran. There's Nat Brent, who again one of the best all-rounders in the world, despite irrespective of the genders. There's also some really good spinning all-rounder quality, especially overseas, with Chloe Tryon and Amelia Kerr. And also there's Heather Graham and Pooja Vastrakar, who can bowl pace as well as bat in the lower order. And as obviously I've already talked about Yastika Bhatia, who would be interesting to see because she has shown in the domestic setup how good she can be, the top of the order. But the interesting part would be to see who actually has to sit this one out because MI, in my opinion, has one of the best foreign all-rounder quartet, and that might push them to bench one of these. And there's Haley Matthews, there's Natsir Brandt, Amelia Kerr, Heather Graham, Chloe Tryon, and Izzy Wong, all of whom can bat and bowl. Now, Izzy Wong is not known that much for her batting on the international or T20 stage, but she is pretty good bat from what I know. And given that only four of them would be taken to the ground, which means any two of them would have to sit out, which would actually be interesting to see. Obviously, Nat Brunt is someone who you probably can't bench, while the other options in Chloe Tryon and EC Wong provide you with with the variety in obviously bowling. Chloe Tryon, who bowls left arm orthodox, can give you 4 overs as well. Plus, she can bat at six, so she's another option. Same is with Heather Graham, who actually bowls pace. But here's some other stuff about the tournament. Obviously, we've already seen the auction. The auction yielded 59 crore rupees of worth of buys, and there's some interesting picks that happened as well. I mean, obviously, there were some big names that came up and they got big money, but there are some names here and there that actually, some domestic names that obviously they did not get that big of price, but they could actually be, some, you know, could be dark horses in some capacity or other. There's Amanjot Kaur, who is, a part of Punjab team in the domestics, and she has recently been doing really well, and there's a good chance that she might actually get to open the batting, assuming that she makes the 11, because there's only other option in opening would be Yastika Bhatia, or there's no other option that Mumbai could try as an opener. So there's a chance she opens with Yastika Bhatia, and it would be interesting to see how she does. On Gujarat Giants, and actually, there's a lot of openers. Actually, they have at least four people who can open the batting, and their middle order is basically full of all-rounders, just like Mumbai Indians. But they are still a little different because they seem a little more figured out on who would be playing and who could be benched, especially because someone like Ashley Gardner, Beth Mooney, Deandra Doughton, and Sophia Dunkley can't really be benched. Annabelle Sutherland, who actually is a very daunting all-rounder herself, but her battle for the spot might not be with someone like Sophia Dunkley, who is might not actually be as as multidimensional as Annabelle Sutherland, but she is the opener, so that's not the spot. They are not competing for the same spot, which kind of puts Annabelle Sutherland in a bad spot. She might get benched, obviously. And on the Indian part, especially the players, they have some interesting name. Harli Gala, who was actually supposed to be the part of under 19 T20 World Cup this year. She suffered an injury and could not be the part of it. But there's also national teams guys in Sneh Rana, there's Manshi Joshi, there's Sushma Verma. So there's a lot of players who are actually kind of making a comeback, and it would be interesting to see how they do for this new franchise. Obviously, they kind of would be in a better place given that they would have, as I said, a lot of freedom to play freely, especially given that this is that this might not be as much of a pressure situation as playing for your national team is. So that kind of puts them in a spot where you might see someone, as I said, someone like Jastia Bhatia, even Harleen Deol, or even if she gets the chance, Sushma Verma, to show her best to the world. So there's a lot of expectations going around. There's a lot of speculations. There's a lot of hope with this tournament. Obviously, people are expecting this tournament to take the women's cricket on next level. Obviously, we have seen WBBL, we have seen the 100. They have their own things, they have their own perks, but the big problem with a tournament like the 100 is that it does not have a lot of overseas inclusion. You can only have three overseas players in your team, which kind of restricts the variety of players, especially overseas, in your team. And even in WBBL, the number is three as well. So you're kind of crunch situation with that, and that sometimes puts the overall quality of the tournament a little down under. Which, let's be fair, WBL and the 100 are still high quality tournaments despite the number. But it would be interesting to see what could the women's tournament bring up with the four overseas option, and five if they are, only Delhi has the option to play Norris, who is actually, associate player. She is actually the part of USA women's team. And uh, as I said, the tournament brings a lot of expectations. The tournament has a lot of eyes on it. There's already a lot of money being thrown around, and tickets are on sale. There's a lot of excitement amongst the fans. And all in all I can say is, I think these 20 days are going to change a lot about women's cricket, even if n- don't necessarily need the tournament to be, you know kind of a record breaker or something to change the paradigm or to shift the paradigm. Because we saw with the first IPL how the first ever IPL was not necessarily a very competitive tournament, but it is still brought a lot of shift in the landscape of international cricket and T20 cricket itself. And see, I expect the same from this tournament as well. So with that expectation, signing off. Bye, and please let me know what you think of WPL and what are your hopes with it. Bye.